plan is to keep those overarching goals on the left. These strategies that you see outlined here, and I'm not going to read all of them to you, were things that were strategies to pursue as a part of the last plan. We're going to talk through both, and Court's going to take on like what we were able to more specifically accomplish and things that remain. So as we get into the next plan, and this is today and tomorrow kind of the building blocks for a plan, Court's going to talk through like some timeline and kind of steps, so you'll kind of see what our thinking is as we work on the actual plan development. But we'll develop new strategies kind of going forward, but this is just again a review of what we had developed as part of our past plan. I'll pause. Any questions to this point or comments? All right, not seeing any. And Melissa and or Tanisha, you'll tell me if anything comes up online. We are recording this session just so that folks know, and because today is planning opportunity, there's not going to be time for public comment, but you saw Logan, who's somebody who's been on many of our meetings and works in the Astoria area. Their public can watch and observe and listen in, but there isn't formal time for public comment. So just so you know. All right, Court, should I turn this over to you? I think you're doing this part. Or I'm doing this part, but I'll do it. You go ahead.
Hey everybody, I am gonna walk you through some of the things we've accomplished over the last 2 years since we put this plan in place. All of these were actions that we had identified in that plan, and these are the outcomes. So one of the first things that we did was really work on the Youth Development Council committee structure and the whole recruitment process. So we restructured committees, established the Equity and Disparity Committee, Policy Rules and Research Committee. We worked on recruitment. I know we've recruited a few members right out of strategic planning, but also tried to improve onboarding, developed a orientation process and onboarding for new council members. We did some work on the juvenile crime prevention plans, trying to really bring some of the racial ethnic disparity work that we do as part of our federal justice work to align with the JCT plans. Clarified the council division roles in the grant process. We'll talk more about this, but back in 2021, as we got ready to award the biennial grants, we realized that there just was some ambiguity in the way the language within our statutes was written around how the council and the staff would work together to make awards within the grant process. We've actually fixed some of that in the updated statutes. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I'll let you talk. But in order to try to streamline that process, and also the fact that we have council members who are sometimes also working with organizations that apply for funds, we came up with a better way to involve the council in alignment with what statute requires and improving our awards process. And so that clarification, we've now used that 2 biennia in a row as the way that we have the council oversight of the grant process, and then the division staff actually carrying out the work of the application and review and awarding process. We've done a lot of work around strengthening our relationships with tribal nations. There was a lot of discussion around how we could honor sovereignty within the plan, and we've done a few things along those lines. One of the big ones was removing the waiver of, it should be sovereign immunity, I think that's a typo, the waiver of sovereign immunity from our grant language. So up until 2021, in grant agreements with tribal nations, they would have to essentially waive their sovereignty and agree that if there was a dispute, they would come into state court to resolve it. And that had been a long-running concern, really problematic, and also at odds with the state's stated government-to-government relationship. And so we worked with Department of Education procurement folks and DOJ to rewrite the language in the grant agreements that we make with tribal nations so that they retain their sovereign immunity, retain their sovereignty. And then we also, during community engagement, met with 6 of the 9 tribes during that process last fall, and I believe have ongoing work with all of the 9 tribes through our juvenile crime prevention planning and grant making. And we've been exploring a sovereign nation funding concept. I think that's been shared with the council, and we'll probably touch on that a little bit more over the course of the next couple of days. Just looking at how can we more effectively ensure that tribal nations have access to funds where the grant making process sometimes is at odds with their own internal approach to applications and of course the whole sovereign government to government relationship. So last thing on this slide, we created and launched the new Youth Development Oregon identity. So at the last retreat, when I'm looking at all the materials, you see the old Youth Development Division logo. For folks who've been around long enough, you may also remember when we had the Youth and You logo. Council. And one of the things that we wanted to resolve was this tension between the division and the council and the way that we identified ourselves and talked about our work. And so Youth Development Oregon was a way of talking about the work that we do collectively as a division and a council. So for instance, in grant making, where the process involves council decisions and division work, Youth Development Oregon is a way to talk about that work as a whole and not leave one entity or the other out. And so we've been working on it. I still sometimes just say I work for the division, and I do. But really my work is also part of the bigger Youth Development Oregon whole, as is everyone's here. I think I left my little clicker. Is someone clicking to the next slide? Thank you. I should maybe also pause. You can certainly interrupt me or let me know if you have questions about any of these. Otherwise, I'll keep talking. Aligning federal Title II dollars with state funds. So this federal Title II funding comes from the Office of Juvenile. I'm sorry, Anya. I'm gonna.
Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention.
Thank you, OJJDP. There's other acronyms that are very similar that I sometimes stumble over. So those OJJDP federal $2 are grant funds that we receive, and we've aligned that with some of our competitive grant processes. So we've used those funds to award grants to community investment applicants that are aligned with the purpose of those Title II funds, but aren't funded through the competitive process. So they might fall a little short, but they're doing work that's really meaningful. And we're able to direct those federal dollars to invest in those programs. Excuse me. Implementing Future Ready Oregon collaboration with Heck and Boley was an unexpected but really exciting manifestation of one of the things we identified, which was just to better align with our partners who are doing workforce development programming for youth. Future Ready Oregon came about in 2022 and it was a special session that was a new investment in workforce programs, including funding for youth programs that we've been administering. So this resulted in 26 new workforce grants back in 2022, and we've got, I don't know the exact number, 29 Future Ready grants in this biennium. But what also happened is it strengthened the collaboration with our agency partners. When Julia from Heck is here, there are other folks that are specifically involved in the Future Ready work at Heck. And just the level of collaboration around data collection, around planning, and coordination generally has been really exciting. And that was the goal that we had that we've been able to achieve through that Future Ready Oregon collaboration. We also did a lot during the legislative process to try to highlight some of the voices of youth who participate in our programs, and it was really exciting to see some of the young people who were served in YDD re-engagement and workforce programs highlighted by the governor during the process of getting this funding approved, and just really, we learned through that work, that we have some really unique things happening here. We'll share that with part of the process state. The convening of re-engagement system programs, doing that both virtually and in person, is something we always intended to do, just increasing the amount of collaboration among the programs that we're funding. We carried out community conversation series across Oregon back in fall 2022 and into early 2023. That really helped us to refine our community investment grant process for this year. It highlighted a lot of local and statewide issues that you face. And it allowed us to take those community priorities and bring those into the new RFA process that we just carried out in the spring of 2023. I'll stop there. Those are our accomplishments. Does anyone know anything we accomplished that you're really excited about that I've missed? That was in the plan. Please jump in. These are the highlights that we've wanted to share with you. And if not, I'm going to go to the things we didn't accomplish, because we believe in accountability. We're going to ask you to sort of reflect on these at another part of today's retreat. One of the things that we identified we wanted to do is a youth engagement plan and a youth summit. And for I think a few different reasons, those did not materialize the way we had hoped. The youth council membership, we had actually set a very lofty goal of 50% youth representation on the council. We did not set a deadline for it, so that's still in play. But I think that the youth engagement plan and that youth summit would really have been essential to driving towards that level of youth involvement in the council. We discussed sort of some ideas around childcare for young parents who are in our programs and working with early learning on that, and that did not materialize as a collaboration. We talked about trying to develop some sort of report or success metric that might be defined by our youth council members or program participants. There was some ideas around developing and promoting some culturally driven supports for youth who are within confinement settings. So that was, really focused on how we might do work that was directly impacting youth who are in different sort of custody environments, whether it's OIA or county juvenile departments. Parent representation was something else that came up. How we might involve parents more in our work, either through engagement with one of the committees or through other ways that we might try to involve the parents of youth. That was identified as an action, but we weren't able to really carry that out, at least at the YDC level. I would say there are probably programs that do a really good job of parent involvement, so I don't want to say that doesn't happen across our investments, but in terms of involving them in the council, we did not achieve that. I'll go to the next slide, please. Unfortunately, I got 2 slides that they didn't accomplish. We talked about a new partnership model or strategy. I think some degree of why that didn't happen is that we kind of just did partnerships. It didn't really end up spending as much time planning them. We just sort of engaged. And I think that still has value, but that is something that didn't really materialize. We talked about an interagency youth policy roundtable. I think there was some sense that there's been legislation trying to create a statewide youth advisory group that's unfortunately not been successful yet, and we saw that as maybe a place where that could happen. That legislation included involvement from youth council members or youth participants in our programs. But that's something that still has not materialized. There was talk of doing a study on racial and ethnic disparities across different youth serving systems. So looking at disparities not just in the justice system, where we might do that in our RED work, but also looking at disparities in education services and trying to really identify at a broader 30,000-foot level like what's happening in Oregon around disparities. That study, would have been an outside commission. We've not done that. We increased collaboration. We did not increase collaboration with private or foundation funders. That idea did emerge. Can we do more alignment with the OCF, Meyer, the other funders, Ford Family Foundation, and others? So we do have folks involved in private funders on the council, or have. But in the past, there was a lot more close collaboration with those funders, and we wanted to see if we could spark that back up, and that has not taken place. And the last piece here, there was an idea for grant making that would really focus more on arts, creativity, culture, traditions, relationships, nature, just looking at another sort of focus that our grants might have. And while we do have programs that do this in the course of their own models they've developed, we haven't set forth a grant making model that prioritizes that specifically. So these were really sort of the key things that we had identified as actions or strategies that some of these, might still be in some way, in the works. I know that we still talk about how we might better connect with private funders, and I know there are conversations periodically. For example, some of these are things that I think we can still pick back up, but we wanted to name all of this stuff. There is a page in the retreat packet. I've got the last 4 slides, so you can see the accomplishments that are highlighted, you can see the things that we did not yet complete in there. And when we move into one of the activities later on this afternoon, we'll actually give you an opportunity to weigh on some of the things that we didn't yet achieve and let us know what we think we really need to hold on to as a goal. So we're not necessarily saying, hey, this isn't going to happen, just that it hasn't happened yet in that 2021-23 plan. And at that, I will stop and would love to hear any immediate thoughts or feedback on this stuff. I don't even know what the next slide is. All right. So for the agenda and agreements, Brian, do you want to pop back up for this?
Well, you should all like give your hands to yourselves like some round of applause or something important or something. But the accomplishments. Right, you can use that along with others in the portfolio. All right, okay. Go for it. And then use that. If you're over there, pick up, double pick up. All right.
All click or you have it?
Yeah, so again, various things accomplished. I mean, feel really good about all of this work. Well, these are things for us to consider. You've got them in your packet. We talked about the agenda, so that's what we're doing today. Talk about agreements. I am going to ask that someone help me read this. Oh wait, let me do one thing. Anything online from folks, Melissa or Tanisha, is there any questions or comments? Good. Who wants to read proposed agreements? I don't want to lean on to Edie again, because the voice of the Christina, I see a hand raised.
I don't know if I can keep up with the dramatic stylings. It's a tough. Okay. Let's see, assume good intent and shared mission. Step up, step back. Everyone has a voice, and ears, you're invited to use both. We have diverse ways of thinking, communicating, and being. If you are typically reserved, seek ways to contribute, even though being vocal may not be your typical path. If you're usually vocal, seize opportunities to listen and affirm. Last but not least for me. Identify the thing, name the challenge, weakness, or threat, but don't dwell on it.
How about another person for the next 3?
Happy to.
Are we on solutions? Yes. Solutions may arise, but accept non-closure for today. Yes, and seek to add, not subtract. Problems are not people. The goal isn't to assign fault, but to identify, understand, and solve problems.
More? Anyone?
I'm happy to.
Please.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you can read the motion. Liz can hear me
So Logan wants to read.
too. Yeah.
Give me one sec.
Oh, you can't hear me.
Can you hear me okay?
Give me 1 second. Let's try it. Because
Oh, this is.
where's my mouse? Towards.
It's really confusing.
So you gotta go to the left.
He's actually on
There he
the
is.
phone.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes, Houston, we do not have.
Go ahead and try to say something.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Be willing to disagree and still commit. Commit to the process, maintain a united effort by the group, and openness to possibility. Recognize the public nature of our work and documents produced by this process.
Thank you.
Thanks, Logan. All right, any additions to the group agreements? I just would ask that you, again, I think maybe they're in your packet, but just please, as we go through, if they're not. Can't remember if they're not, but these are the things by which we wanna that we want to agree to and engage each other for today and tomorrow. So thank you. Next slide. Closer. Oh, it's because. So, as Court mentioned, one of the accomplishments in the last, as part of the last strategic plan, was developing our equity and disparity committee. And the equity and disparity committee not only developed a equity statement that we adopted as a council and as Youth Development Oregon, but also an equity framework and toolkit, kind of a set of tools for us to use. What we wanted to make sure to put out on the table now and know that we've incorporated not every one of these questions, but we've incorporated several of the questions in some of the exercises that we're going to do, or the activities that we're gonna do today and tomorrow. But just wanted to make sure that folks had a chance again, and also for our newer folks to be aware that we use this framework, this lens, the filter, it goes by different names, to evaluate the processes, decisions, procedures that we have, and we wanted to make sure that in this planning retreat that we were keeping these things front and center. So I'll read the questions. Who are the racial, ethnic, and underserved groups who are positively and or negatively affected by a decision, a process, policy, investment, or initiative? Consider how different groups are situated and impacted differently by current barriers and history. Number two, who has the current traditional power or authority and how is that shifting? Explain how the decision-making structure and just decision-making in general is adapting to be equity-driven. Number three, how are we or have we intentionally involved stakeholders or also members of the communities affected or impacted by the decision or work that we're doing, young people, communities of color, tribes, families impacted by poverty. Number four, how are we collecting appropriate data? Ensure the data points on race, ethnicity, gender, geography, identity, like that, orientation, to the extent that we can, sexual orientation, gender identity, to the extent that we can capture that, capture the necessary information in a sensitive way. Probably we're not gonna spend a lot of time on like data, like actually collecting data, but Bill's gonna do a lightning talk tomorrow on data and ask some questions about the data that we collect and what we might want to collect going forward. What is the potential for strengthening and improving youth well-being, achievement, and success, and or reducing disparities, inequities, or barriers? Consider any unintended consequences, including increasing contact with systems, which is often referred to as net widening, processes that might re-traumatize, and any political implications. And then last, what is our commitment to professional learning for equity? Consider what resources we're allocating both internally and externally for training in diversity, equity, inclusion, racial equity, cultural and linguistic and responsive and sustaining practices, etc. As we do this work, what are the places where we need to learn more? So again, we're putting this into practice, was developed as a part of the committee work and brought to the council. But we want to just have you keeping these things in mind. And again, we've integrated some of these questions into the activities to ensure that we can be using the equity framework to drive our work. So you'll see some of this repeated going forward. Any questions to this point? We're gonna get you moving and active here. But appreciate your patience. All right, setting the stage, I think we're gonna get to an activity. Is that you, Ronnie?
We're taking a break, right?
Oh, is it break time?
Yeah, because we actually had time.
We're ahead of time? Yeah. So we're gonna need to just give us
If you're
5
done,
minutes or so.
yeah, but if you're done with your meals, we're gonna need the tables to write on. So if you can, get that cleaned up, maybe 10 minutes.
So till 1 o'clock or no? That's 12.
Oh.
Sorry. Well. We're tracking.
Yeah, I mean, it's so you have to turn off. Nobody's turned that on. Folks, all right, so just checking online, okay, so, I don't wanna say anything bad about online, because it's actually working, so that's all. Yeah, we even tried, we're even using an ESD computer because it wouldn't work earlier this month, so. All right, so, we do have, like Brian said, we have about 10 people online. This is gonna be the next adventure of hybrid meeting for us in a non-hybrid room. We are going to break into in-person activity and then online. Tanisha is gonna facilitate a very similar activity online with them. And then now that we've figured out how to do a share out, sort of, we'll be able to have those folks share out at the end. So, all right, so everybody should have a marker on that. All right, cool. Ran out of colors. Purple was, I think, the one of the quickest to get away. Is the clicker working? I probably didn't. No, because I got the correct color here. To your right. All right, so. There we go. All right, so we're gonna do it back in school. If you've ever done like a mind map or a word map bubble activity, we're gonna do a similar activity here with some big questions that we want people to think about as we kind of get going. So the intent is really to have you kind of reflect on the question, write your thoughts down on a blank piece of paper, and then if you're writing something down and you have a reaction to somebody else, react to it, right? And so we just want to kind of dialogue through. We're gonna take, I think I have to look back at the agenda. I think there's about 20 minutes. You have about 5 minutes per station, and I'll go through a little bit more detail with the questions. But each of those stations have 2 kind of larger, hopefully open-ended questions to make it ponder thoughts. The activity is a lot more fun if you do interact with what people write down. So what we'll do is about every 5 minutes, I'll make a note that we're file core, thank you, is gonna keep track of those times. And then about every 5 minutes, that will just kind of help you guide around that. And then once we get a chance, or you get a chance to go around the entire room to kind of ponder each of the 4 different stations, we'll come back to where you started, and then we'll do some reflection of that and some share out with the group. Right? So, and then again, online folks, are we doing okay with online folks? They got the instructions. Tanisha is going to run a virtual whiteboard for us as well. So we're doing lots of new things on that activity. So did I miss anything on the general instructions of the folks that help?
Do we need to count off, or do we just sort of trust everyone to find?
It's more of an individual activity, so you just kind of choose where you want to. If it is like a station 4 has 3/4 of the room, please go to someplace else, because then when you go back to reflect, it's not much fun to do it on your own. All right, so kind of the big questions. What would make this retreat the most valuable and impactful for you? what do you hope to learn or gain in our time together? So pretty straightforward question, I think, right? Really trying to dive into it. So if there's things you need that you want, Brian's pointing in the back, that's number one back there. The second question, of the 2021 strategic, I guess it should say 21-23 strategic plan actions that have not been completed. So in your packets, right? That's the list of those boards in the packets.
Yes.
So you can use your packets, you want to take that with you. What stands out to you? What of these do you most want us to focus on and accomplish? And like us, we're defining YDO. So the council as well as the staff. This is the council's opportunity to say we really want the staff to do this, right? So please make sure that you outline that on that one. The third one, what outcome or impact would you like to see YDO have in the next 3 to 5 years? What feels like the most challenging thing for us to achieve? In other words, thinking about next round of strategic planning, we want to start generating some of those ideas. And again, if you see something that you really like, react to it. So if you love that someone wants us to make sure that we always have hamburgers for lunch, then let's do that and react to that so we get that sense. And lastly, number 4, who has the current traditional power, authority, and how is that shifting? How are decision-making structures adapting to be equity driven? So that's that equity question, starting to look at that equity toolkit. And I believe the equity toolkit is in the packet as well. Sorry, I have not even looked at the packet today, so I apologize for that. All right, any questions? All right, so again, if you can find, and it should be an intermix, so staff, if you go to a station that's all staff, please rotate and intermix. And then, we'll say staff move, not council move.
For number 4, is it just like globally who has, or like as it relates to priorities for the YDO, or like in what context are we talking
I
about?
think in this, like, who has the current power and authority to kind of impact our decision making in this retreat planning and this kind of strategic planning? I sort of keep it in a planning and
Got it.
strategic planning context.
With a lens on you, right? But we want it to be a lens of where.
Yeah, where the power is and where that needs to shift.
All right, so we'll go ahead and then we have timers, so you'll hear something from over the sound here on it. Those online, it'll be a little bit different in it because I think you have access to all 4 pieces, so kind of float around, but no, this is about a 20-minute activity, then we'll come back and debrief on that side. All right, we ready? We need to turn down the sound on this. Yep, thank you. All right, so if you want to find a station to start out with, and then we kind of see where the numbers are, and then we'll do the kind of flood throughout. In mind, so if you want to get someone that is willing to write on poster boards better than me, would be great. We're going to take about 10 minutes to read over and collectively, as that group is working there, come away with those key takeaways, and then we'll do a share out. And this is where we're going to need to, again, test our hybrid capabilities. During the share out, we will share out. We'll start with question 1, share out, and then we're going to pull the hybrid group in, online group in to share out as well with the group. So, Court, you want to start with number 1, and we'll just kind of go around just so we can.
1,
2,
3,
4, 1,
2,
3, 4,
1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right. All right, so we'll take about 10 minutes. Court's been doing awesome with the uptime report. So we'll do about 10 minutes. If you can find your group and make sure the person that really enjoys writing on poster paper has a marker with them.
Our number is our question.
Number is your question. Thank you for clarifying that. We'll need to pick someone to share out with the group, because you do have to be on a mic for the ones that sharing out.
I need my hand.
So you need a recorder and We've got another hand right. Jared, you guys all good?
He said he would.
I will talk. Yes.
Fourth, right?
Start. You know what I mean, like. Oh, no, she'll just try to read it and.
I started so questions were very good. What sort of things are going on, he stands out and what are the things we want to focus on. I'm not sure. I didn't quite. You can break it down and.
Well, I guess the curiosity, they kind of.
So it looks like though everyone took to kind of using this to define that, because on almost all of, it's not quite, a lot of them are already focusing back to the relationship. And there were some other people saying, but it seems like you really only just focus on the details after, then we need more money.
So.
You're saying the date?
Oh, we don't even need to-
Yeah, yeah.
Our systems.
That was the thing that got stood out.
Yeah, what strikes me is that.
I think that's true.
That'll be our one A.
So I say that.
Can you?
Yeah,
And then a lot of the other. Yeah.
Hey guys, sorry about that. We're having some technical difficulties, but looking at this first page on the first questions, we want to see what are our main takeaways from this question. Sorry about that. Yeah, I can't hear them anymore. It looks like, I guess the main takeaway is you guys just want to learn more. Learn more about everyone and what everyone is doing in their situations, the action projects.
I think, and how best to support.
Okay. More about okay. Those of you who are online, is there anyone who is willing to read out one of the thoughts posted? When the time comes, not at this moment.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and have you write up the kind of those last remaining thoughts. Checking with our online folks, we're doing okay. Oh, hold on a second, question, there's a bus leader. Good stuff. All right, so. Yeah, it sounds like online for all. All right.
No, all government agencies.
All right, where is question one? Question one here in the back.
We need to find money.
I hear people still trying to scramble up a couple thoughts, so I got another 30 seconds. So.
Those online, is there anyone that would like to share out when it's our turn for the first question? No takers?
There you go. Perfect. All right. So if you kind of just turn back into the center, actually look at this. Let's put it that way. Over here, this. All right. So the idea of this, instead of doing the whole walk around the room thing again, if you've already done that 3 or 4 times already, is that the share for the group. Group 4. The share for the group is going to share out kind of the key takeaways that we're. That's the piece of paper we're keeping. So maybe put it that way. And then we'll pause with one to see if the online folks have anything to add. Or do you mind turning up the sound so that they can share out?
On that one?
On that one.
When it's time.
When it's time, yeah. Well, actually, you can probably turn it up now. No, you probably can't. I don't know. I don't want to turn it up. Either. We'll pause. All right. So turn it over to number 1.
All right, so we were what would make this retreat the most valuable and impactful, and what do you want to gain? And the key takeaways we saw were really focusing on what are our priorities and what action can we take. So very action oriented. What are the council individual goals, and really being clear about who does what. How do we transfer knowledge and maximize impact of departing members? There was a lot of talk about building personal connections and being able to know, as a council member, more about other council members and the experience and the expertise that they bring. Some discussion about workforce program alignment with external partners. Again, really focusing on looking forward and actionable things that we can do, and learn and understand more about our context, how systems impact our work.
All right. Any comments from the online folks for question 1 and for, thank you. Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on to group 2.
Okay, we had, of all the great things that got done in the 21 to 23 strategic plan, we had the one sheet that was the things that didn't get done, which is okay. It means we still got work to do. But what we discovered in the comments was there was a lot of consistent energy and meaningful engagement, and so that came up over and over. And then the other consistent theme up there was, and let's figure out how to remove the barriers for youth to participate, whether it's transportation, childcare, technology, like providing space for parents to participate. So that was one whole body of work there was about representation and removing barriers. Then there were a couple of other themes, looking for ways to join other places where youth are already collecting, instead of trying to recreate a youth summit. There are gatherings of youth already there. How do we get to them to be able to grab their intellectual and thoughtful input? And then 2 other pieces. One was looking for funding partnerships that are out there. Again, not recreating the wheel, but looking for partnerships and relationships that will allow us to increase our impact. And then there is this. There was this piece around creating or conducting a study or a white paper. And we rephrase that to, why don't we pull together the existing research to use as part of our work? Like, let's again, not recreate the wheel. We don't have to.
All right, I think I'm gonna stop using that mic because I don't know how well it's working. Anything from online?
Would anyone from online like to share? Nope.
They're talking in a group together. But we're good. All right, so, question 3.
I'm kind of shy, but I'll work through it. Anybody, what? So, thank you, Kim, you're an excellent scribe, I can read your writing really well. Our key takeaways were outcome/impact, increase coordination, collaboration between existing systems to minimize disparities for youth. Basically to keep young people from falling through the cracks. And then the thing that we identified as feeling the most challenging was bureaucracy. That came up in a lot of the comments on this one. Bureaucracy, territorialism, and silos were the things that people repeatedly said on this poem. So, anyway, that's it.
And just checking back in online. Oh, we have a comment or?
Yeah, I mean, I'll share the one comment I made is that within the 3 to
Hold on, we gotta get you on a mic.
oh, sorry.
All right, so you're gonna need to mute so that you don't echo with them.
All right, within the next 3 to 5 years, sorry, I am getting the echoing.
You unmute.
They shouldn't have pointed to me because I don't think everybody effectively leaned into this, who has the current or traditional power and like, I didn't think this guy. Authority and how is that shifting? But what we got were a number of, our synthesis was, transferring the power to the YDO. Okay. Transfer of power to youth. We also have here this notion of disrupting the traditional hierarchy of power that would be race and class, and policies that sustain this, using focused efforts to diversify members making decisions which can change structures. Okay, and I'm gonna be redundant, but just giving you, we have this idea of community involvement, right? More community involvement, kind of power, voice of the community. We want, explain that, where's the bureaucracy process? I just want to make sure I don't mess that up, getting bigger.
Yeah, so, I guess it would be that's who has the power.
Oh, okay, yeah, so, okay. So basically, maybe there's not much, change happening regarding structures. And then we have this, we said power-wise, agency leadership, staff, providers, and grantees. So this idea of shared decision-making, the shared decision-making model through diversified representation on YDC and co-creating processes. So using an equity lens in a variety of ways across both state and local agencies with, and I like this one, without, it's not mine, without a checkbox approach, right? So we have toolkits, but then people, okay, we did the toolkit, but then we really do it, right? Just like this question, are we really leaning into state, federal, and somebody, and being willing to talk about race, class, and gender inequities, and how do we disrupt that by just making room be reflect that, and then having tough conversations and talking about strategies in which to have different people in those spaces to make that, you know, that kind of change, right? So, that always makes. Oh, don't give me the mic.
Everybody was pointing to you, wasn't it? The whole room was pointing to you, I don't know if there was. Anything online? No, all right. Anything that anybody wants to just kind of share out of some big takeaways for the group? Or just some ahas that you might have had in this activity? I want to give space for that. Thanks. Thank you all for going through this process. Hopefully it kind of helped do some thinking and centering as we go into this next activity. Or I have no idea what this schedule was.
Where did Liquor go? Oh, there it is. There we go. All right.
Good sliding.
Okay, so we're gonna take a break. I think we've got about 10 minutes on the schedule, so let's maybe try to stay with that. So bring us back here about 1:20 or so. I want to try to gather these up and keep the pages together since some are not labeled. If you have a pen, if you want to write the number for the ones that don't have the number on them. We'll stack all this, we'll do all this, we have pictures at the end of the day, and try to transcribe them. So thank you all for this, enjoy your break, we'll see you here in about 10 minutes.
Any markers?
Within that, there are some components of planning that have been identified. One of the things that we didn't really do back in 2021, but have done now or started to do in this process is a SWOT analysis. So the SWOT acronym you can see up there stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Folks may be familiar with this, you may have done this before. So about a month ago, as Brian said, the staff got together and we actually did a SWOT analysis from our staff perspective. And the SWOT essentially is this, you've got quadrants here. Well, one way to think about it is the strengths and opportunities are sort of your positive attributes, weaknesses and threats are the negative attributes. And you can also think of strengths and weaknesses as internal qualities, and opportunities and threats as things that are more external to the agency, to the division and council. These are the questions that we developed. The systems change team, which is Abraham, Sally, Bill, and myself. We took a lot of the SWOT analysis out there is very corporate in tone and nature. And so we said, well, what are the questions we should be asking about our work? What are questions that resonate with what we do? So these are the questions that we put together for the staff to ask. This chart should be in your packet as well. And these are the questions that we'll continue to think about today as we do this activity. When we did this analysis, one of the things that we said was, let's think about the work we do at sort of a high level. What are the main areas that we as a staff are focused on and really that the council is involved in as well? So we talked about grant funding, program evaluation, our policy agenda, our partnerships with state agencies, our relationships with communities, the functions of the council, and the way that the agency itself operates, how we work together, support each other, et cetera. So these are all things that came up in the discussions that generated the SWOT analysis that we're sharing here today. And so what we wanted to do this afternoon was go through what we've developed as a staff with council members and of course also our friends from other agencies who joined us. And we want to look at, we've posted up in each corner, we've got one of the quadrants. And we want to share what we've identified and then allow you to reflect and respond to those things. Then we're going to do that for a little while. We're going to come back and we're going to look at a couple of the equity framework questions. I think there are 2 questions to identify that we want to apply to the SWOT. And then after we've spent some time on that, we're going to come back and give everyone an opportunity to rate or prioritize elements in each quadrant, things that you think are very important and urgent for us to address, things that might be important, but have a little less time sensitivity. And then there's things that you think are good, but you just shouldn't forget about. Just what rises to the top for you when it comes to the good things. What do we want to nurture and build on? When it comes to the things that are negative, what do we need to address and repair? And so to start with, we're going to go into this reflect and respond activity. So this is just a chance to go and move through each of the quadrants, give you a chance to read what we generated, and then reflect. How does what we've identified resonate with you? What questions do you have about the things that we've identified? I'd ask that, for staff, of course, we'll have staff there with you, but our goal is not to really add anything at this point, but to respond to what council and guests, want to know more about, want clarification on. And we also want to give the folks who had not contributed to these responses to the SWOT to add things. So we've added some paper there beside these. So if there are strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, or threats that you don't see listed that you want to identify, there's also a place to do that. So we can build on this SWOT and it becomes not just a staff SWOT, but one that is the Tillman Oregon SWOT. And so we're going to split into 4 groups, 1 for each quadrant, and we'll give you a little more time. We'll spend about 12 minutes at each. I guess I'll be doing the timing again. Although I'm also we're going to have something different going on with our guests online. We're going to have staff carrying around laptops so that those folks can actually be involved in the room activity with us. We didn't want to do a separate SWOT. It didn't make as much sense to do that as a distinct online activity. So ideally in each group, we'll have 1 person from the staff who's going to be bringing the online folks along to participate. We're going to go into breakout rooms and facilitate their involvement in the activity with the group here in the room. And so we'll do the first activity for about 12 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next one. I think at this point, should we count off again? Is that probably the best, or do we need to, do you say count off? I guess we'll see where the laptops end up.
Well, the staff will just join. The 4 of us that are joining.
Got it. So we don't have to count off. So everyone who's not carrying a laptop will count off, and then staff with the laptops will join you. So Lindsay, I will ask you to start the count off.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2,
3,
4. 1, 3.
All right, if everyone is counted off, you can go ahead. So we didn't actually number the SWOT. I think that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, and 4 is back in that corner. So the same number order, I believe, as the last activity. And then I'm going to make sure we get all of our breakout rooms set up before we start the timer, just so we know that our online folks are ready to go. So you can go ahead and go to the area where your number starts, circulate around the room clockwise. So moving 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll get our people stuff figured out and go with it.
oh,
We just wanted to laptop.
Like it's exhausting.
Some being.
I'll find out.
Old ones, well, the old ones have. Not everyone asks.
You know, like I
No,
like
it means
that.
two things.
No.
Yeah, I'll make it look and ask you.
Hey, we just got a question. So if your quadrant has stuff that is bolded, starred, or plus signed, those all mean the same thing. It means that they were things that were emphasized by staff. When we transcribed this, sometimes there was a plus, so we copied that. Sometimes there was a star. There were things where I saw multiple stars, I bolded those. So the things that are emphasized, that's really what it means.
Are we getting a lot about persons? We are not. I just found out that we don't have. Moving around. And. I don't, like, right now, there's not like a. But that's why it's there. One of the big things that I. This is the. Talk about having a street or. So we kind of get to see what. We're getting happen in the school. Like how do you share.
Knock on the doors and all the rooms.
On a school-based health center.
People were doing. Like. Tantrum or.
A lot of it is us just trying to operate sort of being honest with. But I think ultimately it's going to be a scary.
Okay, so decrease awareness. Yeah.
Let's just remind you of what we're doing. Here's what we're doing. But I don't know. That's right. Government change. Yeah, they got the county perspective.
We don't want people that.
I think it'd be interesting. Noting the bottom of the company. It's unreadable. That's part of the. Oh, yeah. Well, but I.
Or maybe I'm.
Or they don't. Yeah. I was gonna do that. Because once something wasn't capitalized, I wasn't truly, that's actually. Through all of that process. But absolutely, you know, that might still be. So number six. Then we want to make. The other one is the really literacy. So it's kind of negotiations. A lot of these.
Yeah, it's changing it. Do we want to? Be the voice of the state? Or not, the communities are telling us, or align ourselves with existing priorities. Or elsewhere, collect data so that it's reproducible from our programs. Our use of homelessness to then be able to explain to others. There are so many priorities. And we please on top. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, by ignoring the governor's regulations. To the legislature.
Well, that's here, right? That's. After.
So
but a lot of. So our budget underneath is part of the budget. So I guess that is.
Oh, we're gonna be.
Yeah.
Well, and also.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times that's.
Line item.
So no duplication. Now this is.
Do some of that bubble mapping, which was about in part like getting to know each other, remind ourselves of why we're here and that kind of work, and then to do this analysis of our SWOT work seemed like it was worth the time and effort and energy. And yes, we asked you to do it in 3 parts, but we can get to what are the important questions that we need to answer and interrogate and pursue. And that will help us build, I think, a stronger plan, but we can't go into the plan until we've answered some of these things. So that's my reflection. Anybody wanna take the mic from me and say anything?
I just wanted to say a huge thank you to the staff. I didn't say this before, but I work remotely, so I'm 40% down in Santa Barbara for my day job, 60% here, and I can just tell the effort to integrate folks online. I have bumped up consistently against that care not being taken. So thank you for everyone who helped facilitate that online engagement and in-person engagement with our online colleagues.
Observations, reflections on today?
I was just reflecting doing the sticker activity. I felt like I wanted to do a step of like clustering all the things together first and then put my sticker on it. So I'll be really curious and just my, like, hats off to the person who has to go through and kind of do the mapping of our stickers. Because I know that there are dots on a couple of different things that are the same thing. And so I think just to think about as you're prioritizing it. And there, you know, we've done this type of thing every which way, so in so many different spaces, and there's no straightforward and easy way to do it. So I just appreciate everybody like being in community and in conversation and just doing the process and not being tied to leaving with like, and here is our new plan, and we have our 3 new objectives and it's ready. So I just appreciate that. And I'm eager to see what comes from this.
Other comments or? I'll go.
I wanted to reiterate the gratitude for the staff here, and I've been on this council for a while. And most of the work, 99% of the work happens from the staff, and the council gets some credit because we bring that top 1% or 5%, the finishing 1% or 5%, sometimes like the icing, and sometimes the icing is what gets the credit, and it's not necessarily that it's undeserved, whatever. The reality of it is the strategy that you brought to this makes our work easier, and that's been my experience here from day one, is that all the water that the staff carries makes the work as a council member easier. And one of my takeaways from day one is how do we find the appropriate engagement points for council members where they feel like they can contribute at their very best, and we find some balance in there where there's a little more parity in who's doing the lifting. But this has been awesome, because if we had walked into this room and said, we're gonna do a SWOT analysis with nothing on the board, I would have walked out. It's just, I'm just allergic to those things. You know? So, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Other thoughts? I'm walking this way towards the back of the room or the front. That too. Yeah. Well, and as you're thinking about whether you want to say anything, maybe I can see your packet to be, so I can know if I'm supposed to, just a little preview maybe about what's happening tomorrow. Well, yes, we're definitely debriefing. We're gonna go from here. There's like, we gotta clean up the room and do a little staff, just kind of reflect and figure out what are we even doing tomorrow? No, I think we know, but then 5:30 we'll be at dinner, optional networking, working dinner. Maybe Melissa, can you remind us where we're going?
We're at Sidelines, which is apparently right around the corner.
Sweet,
The invitation is updated on our calendar.
thank you. Sports bar,
It's a sports bar.
we're gonna be betting, don't bet, don't bet. And it's from 5:30 to 7, and then we'll be back here a little earlier tomorrow than today, so just keep that in mind as you're planning the morning. Staff will get here, I guess, in probably 9:30. Please, council members arrive no later than 10. I advise getting here a little earlier, make sure, find your parking, get settled. I think we'll have some coffee and some other stuff here. And then we're gonna get started, as we did this morning, pretty well, right on time. We'll start at 10 a.m. though, tomorrow morning. These lightning talks are kind of like TED Talks, like we're gonna have staff doing these 5-minute or so presentations. And then they have a set of questions that they're gonna ask the audience. So you'll have a chance to engage on 5 different topic areas. So that should be fun and interactive and generate some good discussion. I think we'll go into lunch where we'll be able to continue some of the conversations and maybe at different tables around those presentations you will have heard in the morning. Do some looking ahead. after a break, and then we'll close and debrief from 2:30 to 3, so get me out an hour or so earlier tomorrow than today, and we'll, of course, as a staff, just gonna get the room cleaned up and get everything moving. So that's the schedule for tomorrow. Any questions about that? I think you have it in your packets, but that's a little more detail. This is the last call. Know when the actual desk, I don't know, Melissa, do you know when the MESD building or Janasia or anybody? We can double check. I don't feel like it probably open the doors around 8. No? No? We'll get back to you on that. All right. Well. Yeah, thank you.
Are you guys also the online folks?
Good cord. Wait, anybody online? I know Janine. Parasa's on the phone. Julia, I don't know. Tanasia, any comments or questions online?
Nope. This is Janine. Thanks for letting us be
Janine's
loading virtual people with you.
Hold on, Janine.
Oh, it's not important.
Hold on.
Okay, Janine says thank you.
I said thank you. Thank you.
Great. Perfect, thank you. Tamini, you had
There were 2 slides that are going to be shared with us.
in the packet, we can share the PowerPoint, like I think the equity, maybe, I can't remember, there was some content that was in this PowerPoint, is that what I think that was maybe not the packet? If not, we can either later today or tomorrow, once we're through the 2 days, we can share out as, post kind of planning retreat, the PowerPoints. All right, well, y'all did it, day 1. We think it's gonna win. We'll let you know. So, the point of like how much time is it? I don't know how much time it's gonna take for us to, but we'll be able to give you an update at the next quarterly meeting, kind of like by then I'll have a much better sense of like, yeah, and how much time we need, but we'll start processing. And I think real quick, I think toward a timeline, we have a timeline that we're gonna share, I think tomorrow. So in my brain, there's a timeline of like the broader strategic planning effort. So either we'll share that tomorrow or we'll share it at least in December at our quarterly meeting, that just kind of high level kind of where we see the planning process going to be. So when we have we have dates to re-engage with the committee and maybe a winter or spring gathering, we'll certainly have processed this information in advance of this. So, all right, with that, we will see you at dinner or we will see your mom. Thank you.
We haven't got time for what? No.
Thank you, thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mark, you're